America, and thank you for joining us. On tonight's segments, we will focus on the culturally devastating effects felt in Iraq after the 2003 U.S. invasion. We'll explore the links between the timing of the crime and whom actually committed these crimes, in the hopes to answer the ultimate question of who to hold responsible for all of the cultural destruction. But before we do so, let's gather some background information. Present-day Iraq was once Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Iraq has ancient artifacts that trace back to 9000 BC. The largest collection of these ancient artifacts were once displayed in the Iraqi National Museum. Unfortunately, after the 2003 U.S. invasion, the museum was looted. The significance of the tragedies to follow were understated, but again tonight we want to focus on who to hold responsible for all of this destruction. We have two interviews lined up to show both sides of the stories. Now let's cut to Frankie's interview with Colonel Badagos, the head U.S. military leader.
Hello, Colonel Matthew McDonald. Thank you for joining us. First, I would like to discuss the looting of the National Museum in Iraq. Do you know who actually committed the looting?
Yes, the Iraqi people looted the National Museum. This fact is undisputable. We not only witnessed it, but our investigation also proved it.
Why do you think they looted the museum?
I believe it was a political demonstration. The museum curators had ties to the Ba'ath Party, Saddam Hussein Arabic nationalist group. The party was on the downfall, so as a final crime, they used their insider knowledge to strip the museum of its most valuable collections. Anti-Ba'ath civilians feared the strike, and so, in a preventative effort, they too robbed museums. They turned the pieces over to us. They wanted us to guard them until Iraq could establish a reliable government.
Did you do anything to stop or prevent the looting?
There wasn't much we could do. The fighting was violent, and we were not willing to sacrifice our young men. However, we did do our best to help in the recovery of the violent looted pieces.
Did you know about all the illegal excavations that followed the U.S. invasion?
At the time, we weren't really aware. These people were just looking for a reason to loot. I think the timing was just a coincidence. The market must have been right or something.
You don't feel like the invasion caused the increase in excavation site lootings?
No, ma'am, I do not.
After witnessing all the cultural destruction, what did you do to repair the damage?
Well, you know we paid $800,000 alone just to cover the damage we felt personally responsible for.
And what damage was that?
Well, when we entered Iraq, we needed a place to set up camp, but finding an appropriate place in such a culturally rich area was really not an easy task. So we paid for the damages caused after building our base camp Alpha.
What else did you do to repair the damage?
We stepped in and conducted a lengthy investigation report following the museum looting. We focused the investigation on the recovery of the pieces instead of focusing on the persecution of the looters. First, we determined what pieces were missing. That was really the hardest part.
Why was this so difficult?
Well, the Iraqi Museum did not keep accurate records of their exhibits. The little records they did have were destroyed in the plunder. This made our task incredibly difficult. The originally reported 170,000 pieces stolen were in reality closer to 15,000, and we successfully recovered many of these pieces through our amnesty program.
Tell us more about this amnesty.
We installed a program where looted artifacts could be returned without any questions asked. This led to the return of many pieces, especially those pieces looted by the anti-Ba'ath civilians. Nearly all the success we have made can be attributed to this program.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you, Colonel Adams.
You're welcome.
Hello, Donald George. I'm so glad you can make it. Donald George worked at the National Museum and was there to witness the looting. So we all know that the Iraqi people looted the National Museum, but do you know why they did it?
The U.S. invasion stirred up political trouble. If they hadn't invaded, these feelings wouldn't have exploded. Really, although the Iraqi people looted, this tragedy can be blamed on the U.S. Funding the war also caused the lootings.
What do you mean by this?
Well, you see, many looted pieces were sold to other countries for weapons. The U.S. forced Iraq to address how to fund the war. And this was one of the ways we responded. The worst part was that Americans bought many of these looted pieces.
So it is my understanding that you guys had a premonition the museum might be looted. I want to know, what did you do to protect the museum?
Well, after the invasion, we feared a looting might break out. We moved small exhibits to secret, guarded locations. The large and unmovable exhibits were wrapped in protective foam. We were counting on the U.S. military to defend the museum, but clearly that wasn't the case. It was like they sat around and watched. I believe they wanted to see the museum destroyed. They enjoyed seeing the trouble they stirred. If we knew the U.S. would sit back and watch, we would have taken greater efforts to protect the museum. We did our best, but the U.S. failed.
Let's talk about the U.S. military base. What do you think about them turning the Hanging Gardens of Babylon to Camp Alpha?
The damage a wonder of the ancient world. The buzzing of the helicopters structurally destroys the ancient theater. This was a selfish move. I don't care they meant to damage it or not. The fact of the matter is they destroyed the Hanging Gardens. Enough said.
What do you think about the U.S.'s efforts to reverse the damage felt after the invasion?
I think their efforts were inefficient. In the case of Hanging Gardens, paying for their damage did nothing. The damage was done. As far as helping in the museum looting, I think the efforts were counterproductive. When they installed the amnesty program, it actually led to more looting. It was like they were encouraging it. People could get paid with no questions asked for returning looted work. The U.S. didn't even know it was originally looted from the museum, so they actually brought back pieces that were looted from excavation sites. But this wasn't the only way the U.S. contributed to influx and excavation looting.
How else did the U.S. contribute?
Before the U.S. invaded, Saddam Hussein was in charge. Looting was a capital crime punishable by death. Security guards were assigned to every official day. However, once the U.S. invaded and overthrew the Ba'ath Party, everything halted. These sites were left open, vulnerable to looters. As one would expect, they were torn apart by looters. Again, this can be blamed on the U.S.
It appears we are out of time. Thank you, Donald, for everything.
My pleasure.
Thank you for the interviews, Frankie. Answering this question stirs up a heated debate. There are clearly two sides, but neither seem particularly guilt-free. The Iraqi people did the looting, but the U.S. sparked it. It appears both the Iraq and U.S. should be held accountable for all the cultural devastation felt after the 2003 U.S. invasion. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and I hope to see you again soon.